Is 1 million ringgit today enough to retire in Malaysia? Let's deep dive in. 1 million ringgit used to be an ultimate goal where we can finally call ourselves a millionaire. But in 2026, its purchasing power has actually shifted. So I actually divide it into 3 categories. Basically, are you a basic, comfortable, or enhanced retiree? EPF actually defined enhanced living to be at least 1.3 million ringgit. So 1 million ringgit is actually no longer considered the top tier safety net. This 3 category is divided into basic, adequate, and enhanced, with basic being 390,000, which only covers essential retirement needs, 650,000 to provide a reasonable standard of living, as well as 1.3 million ringgit to actually support a higher quality of life and security. So we take a rule of 5%, whereby if today you have 1 million ringgit and you have an annual return of 5%, such as maybe you have the funds in EPF, it actually gives you 50,000 ringgit per year. So this translates to about 4,167 ringgit per month before any taxes or fees. And assuming if you were to draw down for the next 20 years, EPF actually suggests that you have at least about 1.3 million for the needed 5,417 ringgit a month for your retirement. But if you have only 1 million ringgit, it's also a solid base, but you will need to probably carefully budget it for the next 20 years. So is it enough? 4,167 ringgit actually exceeds the adequate benchmark of 2,690 ringgit. But lifestyle inflation can actually quickly bridge that gap. So let's look into location factor. If today you are living in places such as Klang Valley or Penang, the cost of living is much more higher due to higher rents, dining, as well as transportation, compared to if you are living in Ipoh, Malacca, or Taiping. The silent killer is actually inflation. Today, at a modest 3% annual inflation rate, your 1,000 ringgit today will only have the purchasing power of 550 ringgit in 20 years' time. Your 1 million actually shrinks every single day. While general inflation is actually 3%, healthcare costs in Malaysia is actually about 10 to 12% as reported by the insurance companies in Malaysia. And this is actually one of the biggest threat to our fixed retirement fund. With fixed deposit of 3% that actually barely keeps up with inflation, to survive a 20 years retirement, your 1 million ringgit must be invested in productive growth-oriented assets. So healthcare itself, if we look into the 10 to 12% increasing rate every year, private medical insurance premium often double or triple after the age of 60, which eats into your monthly cash flow. Not only that, assuming if you happen to get any critical illness, a single major event can actually drain 100 to 200,000 ringgit out of your retirement fund. So a significant portion of your 1 million ringgit must be set aside specifically for medical emergencies, reducing your spendable capital. Let's look into lifestyle scenarios. We have basic, comfortable, and luxury from the range of 3,000 to 10,000 ringgit. Assuming if today you spend 3,000 ringgit a month, you probably can only afford to have home-cooked meals primarily. Even for transportation, you may need to opt for your old cars or even for public transportations. Hobby-wise or traveling, maybe you can only travel locally in Malaysia. As well as healthcare-wise, we may even need to rely on to only government support. If you have 6,000 ringgit a month to spend, definitely in Malaysia standard today, you can enjoy regular dine out, having a reliable private vehicle, maybe not the latest model, but you will still be able to have a private vehicle. Regional-wise, for traveling, you can actually travel within ASEAN countries, as well as you can actually afford some sort of a private medical insurance. And assuming if you have 10,000 ringgit to spend monthly today, definitely you'll be able to afford to have a dine out in luxury or premium locations. You can afford to have a luxury vehicle that you can upkeep, and you can actually travel beyond ASEAN countries. And assuming you can also afford full medical checkup at full private healthcare centers. But ask ourselves today, earlier we have discussed, if you only have 1 million ringgit, your only spendable income is about 4,000 ringgit. So you may actually fall between basic and comfortable. All right, this is something that you can actually look into to increase your spendable expenses once you're retired, and aim for 10,000 ringgit if you want to have a more luxury. So what are the strategies that we can actually make to make sure that our 1 million ringgit can actually last longer. We can actually allocate some of our capital, such as 40% into a dividend stock or REITs. If today you are not retired yet, it can actually help you to yield at least 5 to 7% return from your capital. 30% you can actually allocate it into your EPF or ASB. This is actually one of the more stable assets that you can actually put in for your capital. And liquidity buffer wise, try to maintain about 10% in cash or fixed income or even in fixed deposit. This acts as a 2 years bucket for any immediate expense, protecting you from selling your assets during a market downturn. And transfer your risk by getting a life insurance to make sure that should anything happen, such as medical costs, where you happen to be hospitalized, at least you have a medical card to pay for the bills. And if, let's say, you happen to have any critical illness, make sure you have a critical illness plan that pays out so that it does not eat into your retirement capital. So conclusion, is your 1 million ringgit enough? Yes, but it is a foundation, not a finish line. Focus on creating an income stream with your 1 million ringgit to make sure that it can last long above your inflation rate. And try to plan longer term than 20 years, because with medical advancement today, you might actually live longer than you think. Try to think beyond 20 years, maybe plan for up to 30 years to avoid outliving your money. All right? And check your burn rate. The biggest threat isn't the market, it's actually the lifestyle inflation. Know exactly what you spend every month before you retire. So this is a checklist for you, a 4-step checklist. Calculate your monthly burn rate, how much you intend to spend, and adjust for the 2026 inflation. Review your medical coverage and emergency reserve. Diversify into income-generating assets such as REITs, dividend, EPF, and of course, subscribe to my channel, and we will continue to discuss more about finances. So if you have any questions or inquiry, you can feel free to visit my socials, and I will see you in the next video.